Joining us now, Professor Alan Dershowitz, and he's right in the middle of another big thing that he's working on with the FTC. But we got a lot to talk about with Professor Dershowitz, who's joining us now. Professor, great to have you with us, sir.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be on. You know, at a time when we're trying to open up the economy, we're trying to balance public health against the health of the economy, here we have the FTC coming in and closing down a company with hundreds of employees, thousands of students, teaching students how to make money and help the economy during a time of crisis, and doing it without a hearing, without taking any evidence, without cross-examination. Alice in Wonderland justice, verdict first, execution, and then maybe after the patient is dead or the defendant is dead, maybe we'll have a trial and we'll say, oops, sorry, we apologize. We shouldn't have put all those people out of business. We shouldn't have stopped all those students from learning. It's a disaster.
So this is the FTC, or listeners know the Federal Trade Commission, filing a lawsuit against Online Trading Academy, they said, for false advertising as a result of a small number of sour grape students, where you have, Professor, as you know, being in Harvard, any university, some students they don't like the professor, they don't like the teacher, they don't like the curriculum, they don't like something. And so why has this decision been made right in the middle of all these people losing their jobs without due process, sir?
Well, it's terrible. When the students are home, they want something to do. Thousands of them have now filed an amicus brief. A very small number of students complain, and they're entitled to get their money back. Look, I taught at Harvard for 50 years. I always had 10% of the students in my class. I was too liberal. I was too conservative. I'm too pro-Israel. I'm too this. I'm too that. You always get a bunch of complaining students. In fact, one of the things we teach our students is advocacy, complain. If you're not satisfied, go to the authorities. But the idea of shutting down a major company that's been operating for 22 years online in brick-and-mortar buildings without a hearing, it's a due process violation. It's a violation of the First Amendment. These people are not selling health products. They're not selling widgets. They're selling learning. It would be like closing down the Harvard Business School because a number of students said they went to Harvard Business School, they spent a lot of money, and they ended up not making money. Of course some students are not going to make money. You go to Weight Watchers, a few people are not going to lose weight. The idea that you don't allow caveat emptor, especially now. Now the complaint's been filed, so every student in the world knows there are a few people who don't like it. There are a lot of people who do like it. Let the students decide. Let the students vote. Instead, you have a court imposing an injunction, a monitor, taking the assets away, not allowing the school really to function. It's a core violation of due process, the First Amendment, and the policies of our president and governors who are trying to open the economy to the extent possible, consistent with public health concerns. Here you have students working at home mostly. What could be better for the economy than thousands of students learning how to use the economy today to their benefit? If you think there are a couple of false advertisements, stop the false advertisements.
Right.
Sit down and negotiate, and they'll agree. We won't do this. We won't say that. The false advertisement they claim is that they claim that a lot of students have done well on this, but they don't explain what the typical student has done. Of course, how do you know what the typical student has done? You don't know what the typical student has done at Harvard Business School or at any other place. Just, ask him to stop the false advertising, but don't close down the whole school.
Professor Dershowitz with us, Alan Dershowitz. Why did the Federal Trade Commission make this overreaching decision that is kind of ham-handed and not typical of the way, like you said, the way we go through a hearings due process? Why the far-reaching put the hammer down decision?
Because they can. We live in what I now call and others call the administrative state. The Constitution of the United States provides for three branches of government. The legislature, you make the rules. The executive branch, you administer the rules. The judiciary, you decide cases and controversies. But in the New Deal, we invented administrative agencies. They're good things, the FDIC, the alphabet agencies. But they have gotten so much power and they're not supervised generally by the court. So they're used to just getting their way. And if they think that there's something wrong, they'll say, we're the experts. We know. We're going to close you down now. We'll have a trial. If we were wrong, believe me, we'll apologize. We'll apologize profusely. We'll apologize to the 300 people who are unemployed. We'll apologize to the 50 franchisees. We'll apologize to the thousands and thousands of students who we stopped from learning, but we want to stop you now. This is not as if they were selling a medical product that was dangerous to human life. There you need to move in and stop it. Here we're talking about the First Amendment. We're talking about how to try to make money in the stock market, the commodities markets, various other markets. Reasonable people disagree about how you do that. What do? You go to school, you learn. If you disagree, hey, you move on, you do something else. But here they just shut them down. There's no reason to that, and it's being challenged. And I'm part of the team that's challenging it, and I'm very proud to be part of that team. And, I hope in the end we will have an opportunity to run our school. Then we'll have a trial. If we lose the trial, fine, we'll appeal. But the idea that we will be bankrupted, put out of business first, and then they'll have the trial, that's just not American.
Professor Dershowitz, what sort of a precedent does this set now?
If it could happen to this company, it could happen to any small business in the United States. I mean, you're selling anything. You're selling ice cream in interstate commerce. You're doing any small business. You're trying to do a startup. You're trying to really do the American dream, free market economy. This administrative agency comes in and says, we don't like what you're doing. We don't like the way you're advertising your product, so we're going to shut you down. It's so anti-free market economy. Regulations make sense, but regulations must operate within the rule of law. And the rule of law says, first you have a trial. Then after the trial, with the burden of proof on those who are trying to shut you down, only if they satisfy their burden of proof. We haven't been able to cross-examine a single witness. A great scholar once said, cross-examination is the greatest engine of truth ever invented. Let's cross-examine the witnesses. Let's bring the thousands of students. We have amicus briefs from students, petitions from students saying, please let us learn. Don't shut us down. But no, they shut you down first, and then we'll have a trial. But there won't be a trial because the shutting down will prevent the people who are running the school, who've been doing it for 23 years, from having lawyers, from paying, from doing whatever it takes to challenge the government. So what they're trying to do is disarm the people who run the business and say, you can't fight us. Because if you want to have a level playing field, you let them conduct their business, let there be a trial, and at the end of the trial, justice will prevail. That's the American way.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Trucking the Truth. We're with Harvard professor Alan Dershowitz. You know him very well, Fox News, CNN, all the cable channels. He's been a fighter for justice for a very long time. Professor Dershowitz, there's currently 3 other cases before the Supreme Court right now pertaining to the Federal Trade Commission overreach. So this is not exclusive to this particular company, Online Trading Academy.
It's a big issue. In fact, there are a lot of people in the country, lawyers, members of the Federalist Society, very eminent people who think that administrative agencies have way exceeded their authority, and they have to be held to account. And the issues that are being litigated and have been litigated, will continue to be litigated, is whether or not the administrative agencies, this is only one of many, have the power to do what no court really should ever have the power to do, and that is convict somebody before there's a trial. And, and if there's an imminent danger, okay. But we're talking about education here, and there's no imminent need to shut down the company. And so we'll take our case to the Supreme Court as well if we lose, if we have the resources to do it. But they're trying to disarm us. They're trying to tell us, we're not going to let you litigate this case all the way to the top. And part of the reason may be that they're afraid of the result, the FTC, because if they let us litigate using all the resources we have to try to show that this is an unfair method, we are likely to prevail in the end. But no, they're going to try to shut us down and bankrupt the owners of the company and the franchisees and make it clear that you don't mess with the FTC. Well, in America, there's no government agency that's above the law. And the FTC should not be above the law. And they're putting themselves above the law by verdict first and trial after.
Professor Dershowitz, what influence does the Trump administration have over the FTC?
They have influence. Look, it's a branch of the executive government. In the end, the executive government is the President of the United States. It's the only branch that has one person, judiciary, 9 members of the Supreme Court, Congress, 500 and something members of Congress. The executive branch is the president. Now, the agencies are, to some degree, independent, but policies can be established at the very top. Congress certainly has a lot of control of the FTC. Congress created the FTC. Congress has, senators who are on the subcommittee that govern the FTC. Senator Jerry Moran of Kansas is chairman of that subcommittee. And they can have hearings, and they can question FTC members and the chairman. Why? Why do you need to shut the businesses down first? Why not do this in the typical order that you have for any kind of a lawsuit? File a complaint, submit evidence, let the other side cross-examine, let the other side put on evidence, let the other side put on the vast majority of students, have a hearing, and then at the end, let the judge or the jury make a decision as to what the truth is. Why are they afraid of the truth? And so I hope Congress will exercise some oversight over the FTC without eliminating its independence. Independent agencies are important, but there's a degree to which they should not be allowed to operate without some compliance with the usual rules of law, and that's what's happening in this case.
What's their objective here, Professor Dershowitz? I mean, there's a definite, you talk about the administrative state, the FTC, definite overreach. I just want to draw a contrast. I'm in the media business. We own and buy radio stations. The Federal Communications Commission, under Ajit Pai, the chairman there, has been, their reforms have been fantastic. I mean, they have streamlined the business. They made it easier to operate. Everything is easier. Everything is better. So they've done the opposite. They've actually rolled back administrative things that you have to do. What is the FTC's overall objective in this level of overbearing overreach, sir?
Well, the legitimate objective is to make sure that the public, that consumers, are treated fairly and aren't fooled. But here you have a situation where the consumers are on the side of the company. The vast majority of the students who are the consumers say, we were not misled. The teaching is wonderful. The advertising was fair. Don't protect us. We're grown-ups. We want to learn how to make money in this business. Please leave us alone. Don't protect us. The goal of the FTC is to protect the consumers. That's their mandate. But here they're going against the consumers, and they're adopting an agenda of their own. Why don't they just sit down with the company and say, look, this ad, we wish you would say this instead of that.
Right.
Maybe you should reduce this claim and say it's not typical, but this is representative. Use a different word. Negotiate. Be sensible, but don't
send a letter. Why not just send a letter to the owner saying, we object to this ad, here's why, change it, or, something bad will happen. Instead, they just shut the thing down. It's inconceivable. I mean, the problem is, Professor Dershowitz, this could happen to anybody. That's always the problem, right?
Yeah. And America, we thrive on small businesses. And, it's so easy to imagine that we could have put some of the greatest businesses in America out of business early in their careers when they had 300 employees, when they had 1,700, 5,000, 33,000 customers like our company has. It would have been so easy to put some of the greatest companies in America out of business early on when they didn't have the resources to fight back. Or small mom-and-pop stores that operate in interstate commerce. They could be put out of business. It's ultimately bullying, and it's wrong. The government should be on the side of the consumers, yes, but here they didn't even interview the consumers. They didn't come around and say, look, you have all these customers who are satisfied. Let's hear from them. They heard from a very small number of students who were not happy with the company and thought they were misled. And as the result of a small number, not a sample, a small number, they went after the company. Look, I'm sure the FTC thinks they're doing God's work.
Right.
They think they're doing the right thing, but they're just dead wrong in this case. And give us a chance to prove that you're wrong. You know, you're not above the law. That's the key. Give us a chance to prove our case. That hasn't happened here.
Well, it's about power. Who in Congress oversees the Federal Trade Commission?
Well, there are congressional committees both in the House and in the Senate, and they do have hearings occasionally. And this would be a perfect case where students, I'm sure, would love to come and testify. Obviously, today they would do it probably remotely. They have already filed petitions. They are in the process of filing amicus briefs and trying to enter into the case. The students are furious. You can go online on Facebook and see interviews. There's an interview with a student, a woman, who is a very serious person, and she has been with this company for several years and loves it, loves the community that's been created, and has become very active in trying to prevent this injustice from occurring. So there are congressional committees, both in the House and in the Senate, and ultimately the Supreme Court may decide cases that support our point of view, but it'll be too little too late. We need to do something now because otherwise the company will be shut down. You know, the business model of a company requires income in order to support itself. And once the FTC comes in, and the FTC in this case told the banks, before they even saw a bit of evidence, we're shutting down this company, don't lend them any money, don't do this, don't do that. It was a clear desire to put this company out of business. They demonized the company, they demonized the owners, they demonized the franchisers, and in the end they demonized the students. And they said, we're not interested in you students, even though you're the vast majority. We're not interested in what you think. We're interested in what we think. We're Big Brother, and we know better than you do. And we know you've been misled, and we know you're being abused and mistreated. So we're going to shut down the company, even though you want it to continue and you really crave the education. What could be a better time to resolve doubts in favor of allowing a company to operate than during this pandemic, when here are students who can learn at home, here is a business that can reemploy the hundreds of people that have had to be dismissed. It's the perfect time for the presumption to be reversed and for the company to be allowed to go forward, at least until a time when there's been a judicial verdict based on evidence and cross-examination in the American system of justice.
So they disrupted 40 franchisees, put them out of business. They threw another 300 people out of work. All the students that were in the middle of this, they're all gone. And it's like, I'm from the FTC, here to do you a favor. But if I'm a student there and I'm happy, it shouldn't be up to me.
Of course it should be up to you. Look, that's the American way. Caveat emptor, let the student beware. The students now know both sides of the issue. They can read the complaint. They can go online. They can look at the advertising. They can make decisions for themselves. Thousands and thousands of students have done that. They have been students for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. They know better than the FTC. They know that they have made money through this education system. You compare it again to the Harvard Business School. Harvard Business School claims that if you come to Harvard Business School, you will be a success in business. And they're right for the most part, but you're going to get a few people who either through bad luck or they haven't worked as hard or for whatever reason, the economy is in bad shape, their investment in the business school hasn't paid off for them. That's not a reason for shutting it down. Also, this is a First Amendment issue. Even if it turns out you disagree with the teaching method, the marketplace of ideas is open. Open a competitive company. Go on television and put ads in the paper, say this is not a good company. But shutting them down, a First Amendment company, that's just not the way the United States is supposed to operate under our Constitution. Due process, First Amendment are key provisions of our Constitution, and they're being violated in this case.
All right, final question. We're almost out of time. What do you plan to do about it?
We're fighting back to the extent we can. We're in court all the time. We're appealing to the United States Court of Appeals. We're trying to argue a case in the Court of Public Opinion. We're trying to get Congress involved. The students are being the ones who are really pushing this thing. They are really pushing. They want to be heard in court. They want to testify. we're fighting back. And I hope we'll have the resources to continue to fight back, because this is not only about this company, online trading. It's about every small business in America that wants to succeed, that wants to live the American dream. And we're really representing all small businesses in an effort to try to impose some constraint on the FTC's Alice in Wonderland injustice.
Once again, Professor Alan Dershowitz on the cusp, on the cutting edge of freedom and defending the Constitution in America. Professor Dershowitz, thank you for being with us today and explaining
what a pleasure for me to be on your wonderful show. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, sir. Good luck.